Welcome back to the Fairy Frequency channel. If this is your first time here, please remember to smash the like for us, the big red button, and the little bell so that you get all of our channel notifications. Today I will be reading to you from Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming by Stephen LaBerge, Ph.D., and Howard Rheingold. You need to remember to ask yourself, am I dreaming? Training ourselves to ask that question during our waking state also trains us to ask ourselves the same question during our dreaming state. So I encourage you to make yourself a little card like this. I just used a recycled piece of silver cardboard that the kids had from one of their Christmas drone packages or something like that. And then I wrote in big bold letters, "Am I dreaming?" So then every time I think about it, I can remember to ask myself, am I dreaming? So I'm just going to set that to the side so that we can concentrate on our reading. Maybe. There we go. All right. Today's chapter is Chapter 8, Rehearsal for Living. So we're looking for page 183. Now remember, folks, if you've missed any of the previous chapters of this wonderful, dreamy, and metaphysical book, you can find them in our original playlist titled Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming, found on our playlist tab. And of course, we also want to encourage you to check out our community tab, where you'll find video posts, channel updates, polls, random photography, and we want to encourage you to like those posts over there and then also to comment on the posts too to help the algorithms of the community tab. And also, if you want to share this out with your dreamy near or not friends, that would be such a great help for us too. So, without further ado, Chapter 8, Rehearsal for Living. Lucid dreaming and peak performance. It was the night before my first 10-kilometer road run, and I was apprehensive. It was my first such race. The course was hilly, and I had never run on a hill in my life. All my training had been on an indoor track. That night, I dreamed of running on hills using techniques I'd only read about. I remember knowing I was dreaming during the dream and remarking to myself that this would give me a chance to learn how to run on hills. It worked. During the actual run, the techniques I'd practiced in my dreams felt exactly the same and worked just as well in reality. B.E., Alexandria, Virginia. When I was about 12 years old, my mother made my sister and me take tennis lessons one summer. Toward the end of the 4 weeks of lessons, I found out there would be a tournament and a trophy for the winner. That night, in my dream, I realized I was dreaming and decided to master the game of tennis. I took what I had seen on TV on other people's tennis games and tried to remember the way they hit and served, etc. By the end of the dream, I was doing pretty good on swinging and incredibly on serving. Because with serving the ball, once you have the technique down, it's really very basic and repetitious. When it came to the tournament, I beat everyone and walked away with the trophy. The teacher couldn't believe how well I played, and neither could I. BZ, Salt Lake City, Utah. Authors Charles Garfield and Hal Bennett popularized the term peak performance, referring to those extraordinary moments when body and mind seem to operate together at the very top of their capacity. Research on how to cultivate peak performance suggests that lucid dreaming may prove to be an ideal training ground, not only for athletics, but also for any area in which skill can be developed. Garfield, president of the Peak Performance Center, interviewed hundreds of successful athletes about those moments when they performed extraordinarily well. He identified mental conditions that seemed to characterize personal peaks for the majority of athletes. Peak performers, he found, were relaxed, confident, optimistic, focused on the present, highly energized, extremely aware of the environment, in control, and completely in touch with their powers and skills. The athletes were mentally as well as physically prepared to perform. Interest in peak performances has spread from sports psychology to business. Businesses have discovered that mental practice can boost performance levels on the job as well as on the playing field. Yoga, breathing, and meditation have been successfully employed for both material and spiritual achievement. Even greater improvements in performance have resulted from the use of controlled mental imagery and mental rehearsal. Lucid dreaming is a very powerful type of mental imagery. Waking mental imagery are weak sensory impressions that resemble actual experience but are generally not as vivid. For example, imagine an apple in front of you. If you're like most people, you can sort of see the apple, its shape, color, and position on the table. You can imagine what it would smell like if you could pick it up and sniff it, and what it would taste like if you could bite into it. However, you are not likely to mistake it for a real apple. If you visualize an imaginary apple next to a real apple, you will know which one you can really eat. Dreams, however, are mental images of completely convincing vividness. While in a dream, you may pick up and eat a dream apple and be absolutely certain that you are really eating an apple. If you become lucid, you have the power to realize that dream apples, despite their apparent reality, are not really real. They do not fill your stomach. However, this realization does not diminish the vividness of the experience. Dreams are the most vivid type of mental imagery most people are likely to experience. The more the mental rehearsal of a skill feels like the real thing, the greater the effect it is likely to have on waking performance. Because of this, lucid dreaming, in which we can make conscious use of dream imagery, is likely to be even more useful than waking mental imagery as a tool for learning and practicing skills. Mental practice. In the dream, I was in a rink with a number of other people. We were playing hockey, and I was skating in the manner I always had, competent yet hesitant. And at that moment, I realized I was dreaming. So I told myself to allow my higher knowledge to take over my consciousness. I surrendered to the quality of complete skating. Instantly, there was no more fear, no more holding back, and I was skating like a pro, feeling as free as a bird. The next time I went skating, I decided to experiment and try this surrender technique. I brought back the quality of that dream experience into my wakened state. I remembered how I was feeling during the dream, and so, in the manner of an actor in a role, I became the complete skater once again. I hit the ice, and my feet followed my heart. I was free on the ice. That occurred about 2.5 years ago. I've skated with that freedom ever since, and this phenomenon has manifested itself in my roller skating and skiing as well. TR, Arlington, Virginia. While the idea of mental rehearsal as a way of refining motor skills was once a radical hypothesis, research in this area has now burgeoned into a rich, interdisciplinary field. Studies have shown that new skills can be learned to some extent merely by thinking about performing them. Learning improves when mental and physical practice are combined. How can merely imagining doing something help you to actually do it better? First of all, remember that laboratory work at Stanford showing that when people dream of performing an action, such as singing or engaging in sexual activity, their bodies and brains respond as if they were actually doing it. except that their muscles remain paralyzed by the REM process. Apparently, the neural impulses from the brain to the body are still active and quite similar, if not identical, to those that would accompany the same acts in waking. Likewise, researchers of mental imagery have found that vivid imagined events produce innervation in our muscles that is similar to that produced by the actual physical execution of the event. For example, Richard Soon monitored the electrical activity in the legs of a downhill skier as he mentally relived a race. He found that the skier's muscles exhibited activity in sequence that corresponded to the layout of the run, showing more activity at times when the skier was imagining navigating turns and rough sections. Imagery rehearsal may work to improve motor skills by strengthening the neural pathways used to elicit the patterns of movement that are required by the skill. There is, however, an important difference between dreamed action and imagined action. When we are awake, the neural impulses to the muscles created by imagining an action must be somehow attenuated to keep us from acting out what we imagine. If they were not, think if they were not Think what would happen each time you fantasize doing something. Say, on a hot day while sitting at your desk, you think how nice it would be to dive into a lake. If the neural messages caused by your fantasized action were as great as those evoked when you really intended to dive, you would be likely to break your neck in your resultant attempt to dive off the desk. While we dream, our muscles are actively inhibited from moving by the REM process through a different neural pathway than the one that transmits directions to act. The neural messages to our muscles in dreams can be as strong as they are when we are awake. The evidence for the presence of the intact, full-strength messages from the brain to the muscles in REM sleep comes from studies with cats. French researcher Michael Jouvet blocked the process that causes muscular paralysis during REM in cats. He found that the cats that moved around in REM as if they were acting out their dreams. Thus, lucid dreaming may be more powerful than waking mental imagery for motor skills, for motor skill enhancement, not only because of the vividness of the imagery, but also because the physiological nature of REM sleep is ideal for establishing neural patterns without actual movement. Through imagery or lucid dreaming, athletes could even practice performing movements for which their bodies are not yet physically prepared. Setting up neural and mental models for skills. This way, the movement models will be ready when the muscles are. Another basis for the usefulness of mental practice is the idea of cognitive coding. More complicated skills require the construction of conscious maps of the skills in addition to the establishment of the neural pathways that facilitate a movement. This is called symbolic learning. Symbolic learning theory proposes that imagery rehearsal can help you to codify the sequence of movements involved in your skill. For example, a swimmer might codify the correct sequence for optimally performing the breaststroke by thinking pull, breathe, kick, pull, breathe, kick. Using imagery, you can set up symbols in your mind before going through the actual motions. When so much of your energy may be required to perform the action correctly that you may not be able to simultaneously analyze its structure. Lucid dreams could easily be used for this purpose, again because of the vividness of dreamed experience. Improving physical skills in lucid dreams. At the age of 10, I became a proud owner of a real Shetland pony for about a year. One little chore that simply defeated me was trying to cinch up the girth strap on a saddle. It is equivalent to learning how to tie a man's necktie. One night I realized I was dreaming and dreamed that I was trying to learn this art. And in the dream I studied the configurations involved and saw how to do it. The next day I walked out to the barn and went straight to the saddle and cinched it exactly as I had learned the night before. Perfectly. K.A., Portland, Oregon. As we mentioned earlier, researcher Paul Thawley, a sports psychologist, had done pioneering work investigating the use of lucid dreaming for skill training in sports. Thali provides several suggestions on how lucid dreamers can use their dreams to work on motor skills. He asserts that sensory motor skills, which have already been mastered in their rough outlines, can be optimized by using lucid dreams. If you more or less know how to swing a bat, jump over a hurdle, or juggle 3 balls, then lucid dream practice can help you learn to do it better. Furthermore, Thali proposes that new sensory motor skills can be learned using lucid dreaming. He cites the experience of a skier as an example. Jetting, with its strong shift of a center of gravity backwards, had always made me so afraid that I constantly fell and came home to the cabin covered with bruises. When I learned lucid dreaming that following summer, I began to dream about skiing over moguls. I often used the hump to initiate a flying experience, but at some point I also began to lean back shortly before the hump, thereby taking my weight off the skis in order to change direction with my heels. That was a lot of fun, and after a few weeks it became clear to me during lucid dreaming that my movements corresponded to jetting. When I went on a skiing vacation again the following winter and took a course, I mastered jetting in 1 week. I'm absolutely convinced that it was connected to my summer night exercises. In another example, Thali quotes a martial arts practitioner who found it difficult to retrain himself in the soft style of Aikido after years of hard-style karate. On this particular evening, after still not succeeding in wearing down the attacker and taking him to the mat, I went to bed somewhat disheartened. While falling asleep, the situation ran through my mind time and again. While defending myself, the correct balancing movement collided with my inner impulse to execute a hard defensive block, so that I repeatedly ended up unprotected and standing there like a question mark. A ridiculous and unworthy situation for the wearer of a black belt. During a dream that night, I fell down hard one time instead of rolling away. That day, I had made up my mind to ask myself the critical question in this situation. Am I awake or am I dreaming? I was immediately lucid. I went to my dojo where I began an unsupervised training session on defense techniques with my dream partner. Time and time again, I went through the exercise in loose and effortless way. It went better every time. The next evening, I went to bed full of expectations. I again reached a state of lucid dreaming and practiced further. That's the way it went the whole week until the formal training period started up again. Even though I was totally relaxed, I amazed my instructor with an almost perfect defense. And even though we speeded up the tempo, I didn't make any serious mistakes. From then on, I learned quickly and had received my own training license after 1 year. According to Thali, once a technique or skill has been learned, lucid dreaming can be used to perfect routines before performance. In addition, he suggests that athletes, especially those involved in risk-taking sports, should go a step beyond practicing optimal actions in lucid dreams and work on acquiring flexibility of action in the face of unusual or stressful situations. We will discuss the idea of the benefits of mental flexibility in more detail in Chapter 11. Thali further hypothesizes that lucid dreaming can affect performance by improving the psychological state of the athlete. By changing the personality structure, lucid dreaming can lead to improved performance and a higher level of creativity in sport. The key change, in Thali's opinion, is from an ego-centered personal outlook, which he feels leads to a distortion of perception, to a more flexible, responsive, situation-oriented personal outlook. The skier who is thinking about beating an opponent is more likely to lose his balance when he hits an unseen bump than the skier who has learned to relax, pay attention to the terrain, and react fluidly to the unexpected. Thali remarks that this shift from ego-centered to situation-centered outlook is applicable to the life beyond sports. Exercise. Lucid dream workout. Number 1. Set your intention before going to bed. During the day and in the evening before bedtime, think about the skill that you would like to practice in your lucid dreams, or actually practice in it during the day and notice the problems that you need to work on. Think about what it would feel like to do it exactly right. If you can, study the performances of experts or masters in your skill. While practicing, thinking, or studying, remind yourself that you want to practice in a lucid dream tonight. Number 2, induce a lucid dream. Use your favorite lucid dream induction technique, see chapters 3 and 4, to stimulate a lucid dream. While practicing the technique, visualize yourself becoming lucid and see yourself practicing your sport or skill. You can also use the lucid dream incubation technique on page 158 to induce a lucid dream about working out. Number 3, set up your practice environment. When you are in a lucid dream, first make sure that you are set up to practice. If you need to change your environment, do so. Travel to the gym or field or create one around you. However, remember that you may not need to go to a special place just because you ordinarily do while awake. You can dance on a rooftop as well as in a studio. Number 4, practice aiming for the best. Practice. Each moment you execute your skill, concentrate on achieving perfection. Recall how it looks when a master does your skill and try to duplicate what that would feel like as you do it. Lucid dream practice is ideal for working on the feel of the skill, how it all fits together, and performing it smoothly. Number 5, push the boundaries of your potential. In a lucid dream, you can go beyond what you know you can do. When you have felt that what it is, when you have felt what it is like to perform the skills you know perfectly, try out more advanced skills, even things that you have never tried before. And remember that you cannot hurt yourself by straining muscles, getting overtired, or making an error of judgment, because your muscles aren't actually moving. You may be able to get the feeling of a new skill in your dream, and this will prepare you to learn it faster when you are awake. Rehearsal for living. I have called a meeting in a conference room. Present are big shots and team colleagues of mine. I am moderating this meeting, and at the same time I am an observer. The scene is undisturbed by my omnipresence. As an observer, I can watch each person's expressions, detect interpersonal nuances, read each person's thoughts. I make sure I never interfere with their free will. I want to know what their reactions are to what the moderator, me again, has to say. As an observer, I can freeze the proceedings and zoom in on an individual and read his thoughts. As an observer, I can wipe out from everyone's memory one presentation or words from the moderator and start over with a new opinion. This can go on indefinitely. Usually it serves me as a rehearsal for a meeting I'll have the next day or in a few days. It also gives me an indication of what someone may ask, so I can do research in advance, or where loose logic needs to be strengthened. MC West Chazy, New York. As a teen, I would make myself dream how I would act the next day in school or any social activities. I won my first tennis tournament the night before in my dreams. I also dreamed myself through several college interviews before actually going through one. After nursing school, I dreamed how I would manage a cardiac arrest and most any stressful new thing in my career. I can make myself dream just about anything that I need to practice before doing it. C.A., Jacksonville, Florida. Before I went to sleep, I was mulling over ways in which I could present my internship experience to my classmates. While dreaming and knowing I was dreaming, I wheeled a cart of stuff into the classroom, set it up, and did a wonderful presentation. I saw overheads outlining my talk, slides, posters, everything I would need. When I woke up, it was very clear how I should organize and present the material, so I did, and it went beautifully. M.K., Wildwood Crest, New Jersey. These examples show that lucid dreaming can be used to rehearse for anything in life. Just as with sports, we can set up patterns of action and behavior in advance that allows us to perform more smoothly when the time comes for the actual event. We can rehearse specific anticipated performances, such as an oral exam, a dance routine, a meeting with an influential business associate, a surgical procedure, or a difficult discussion with a loved one. The next section presents another application of lucid dream practice to your ability to perform. Reducing performance anxiety. This dream helped me overcome an irrational fear. My dream began with me walking up the driveway toward a large white house. There were dozens of people with candles going in. I did not have a candle, and I felt afraid I would be unable to enter. When I came up to the door, I had to squeeze my way in. Inside the main room were hundreds of people. While standing in line, I noticed a guitar. Although I could play, I was afraid nobody would like my music. In the back of my mind, I realized I was dreaming and that it was okay to do what I wanted. Since I had always wanted to play at a party, I went ahead and picked up the guitar. I was really amazed at how well I could play the music I wanted, and I really enjoyed putting on my impromptu performance. Many of the people around me said to me how much they too enjoyed my songs. I felt as if a burden had been lifted. I then went through the crowd, making friends. J.W., Sacramento, California. Learning a skill is sometimes not enough. Often you must learn to perform in front of an audience. Most people are at least a little nervous about being in front of a group. Many are nearly paralyzed by the prospect of making a presentation at work or a speech at a testimonial dinner, or of appearing in a public athletic or artistic performance. We have received quite a few letters demonstrating that people can conquer this obstacle by rehearsing performances in dreams, where it is possible for them to let go of anxiety about the audience because they know it is not composed of real people. The next exercise will help you to do this. Exercise: playing to the dream audience. Number 1, set your intention before going to bed. During the day, think about what you want to do in your lucid dream. If you can, practice your performance, your concerto, your dance, your batting, whatever. As you do so, remind yourself that you want to perform in front of an audience in your lucid dream tonight. If you can't practice, imagine your performance and see yourself performing in a lucid dream tonight. Number 2, induce a lucid dream and go to your performance arena. Use your favorite lucid dream induction technique, see chapters 3 and 4, to produce a lucid dream. When you become lucid, go to the recital hall or athletic field or meeting room where you feared performance is to take place, or use the lucid dream incubation technique on page 158. To create a dream about your performance, if you can't get yourself there in the dream, try to set yourself up to perform right where you are. Number 3, accustom yourself to the audience. Look around at the people in the audience. If they look unfriendly, remember this is the result of expectations of disaster caused by your performance anxiety. Smile at the audience and welcome them. If you do this sincerely, they will almost certainly become friendly and appreciative. In any case, you don't need to fear their criticism or what they will think of you in the morning. After all, they won't be there. But in your lucid dream, they can help you perform to your utmost capacity. Number 4, perform. Do your act, give your speech, play your piece, or whatever, and enjoy it. Commentary. If you do the above and still have difficulty with the idea of an audience, try this variation. Be alone in the performance area. Concentrate on feeling relaxed and unpressured. Then think of the ideal, non-threatening person sitting in the back row, a trusted friend, or maybe yourself. Fill the back row with other non-threatening persons. When the house is filled with an appreciative-looking audience personally created by you, pick up your cello or your tennis racket and play to your heart's content. Increasing self-confidence in dreams and waking life. I'm working with my psychiatrist to become more assertive In my lucid dreams, I am always with a group of people in a room where everyone seems to be doing or saying exactly what they feel. I'm usually sitting back, not saying much of anything, and feeling very badly inside. Suddenly, I realize that I'm dreaming and I can decide to change my behaviors in the dream and say exactly what is on my mind. It's a little scary doing this because it is new for me, but at the same time it feels good and makes me feel clearer. I wake up from these dreams feeling especially good about myself. It shows me how it feels to act aggressively rather than passively. You can see how these dreams are allowing me to make progress in my therapy. KG, Charlotte, North Carolina. The epiphany was a dream that confronted my insecurities and lack of confidence. Right after a friend of mine died, I had dropped out of a doctoral program and was convinced there wasn't anything I could do that was useful. In the dream, my friend, the one who had died, and I went to another world to learn about flying. Everyone in this world was flying, animals, men, women. The landscape was very beautiful, serene, peaceful. My friend told me I should fly as well and said that I couldn't. And I said that I couldn't, that this was his world and I couldn't fly because I wasn't dead. So he said, "No problem. You just have to create the solution." And then he took off and I turned to find a booth renting wings for 25 cents. I put the wings on and leaped off a cliff and was happily flying until I suddenly realized that it was ridiculous that a pair of cheap rented wings could sustain me. With that thought, I started plummeting to the ground, screaming. In that moment of panic, I groped for some salvation and thought to myself, but I was flying just a moment ago with these wings and was easily aloft again. This conflict between belief and disbelief, falling and flying, repeated 2 more times until I realized this was a dream and that it was my belief that I could fly that enabled me to fly, not any artificial devices or other means of external support. And at that moment, I also realized that this was true in my waking life as well. The dream experience instantly transposed itself into a gut feeling that if I believed in myself, I could do anything. The next week, I interviewed for a job. During the interview, I could see that the person thought I was wrong for the job, and I was about to give up when I thought about my lesson in self-confidence. I found myself saying positive things about my resourcefulness and commitment to hard work. I was hired and became a consultant, ironically, in a field I knew nothing about. My employer later told me she hired me because I seemed so positive and confident that she knew I could pick up the technical skills quickly. AT, San Francisco, California. We tend to try only what we think we can do, which is generally less than we are capable of. Lucid dreaming provides us with one way of expanding our belief in our own potentials. We can safely test new behaviors while dreaming, and the increased self-confidence will make it easier to carry out the same behaviors in waking life. Albert Bandura, an eminent psychologist at Stanford University, has proposed what he calls social cognitive theory to explain higher human functions in terms of reciprocal relationships between our behavior, our experience, and what goes on inside our heads. Several aspects of Bandura's model can be useful to lucid dreamers because they offer a clear explanation of why actions and dreams can have real effects on the dreamer's personality. According to Bandura, people learn to behave by observing the results of their own actions, and vicariously by observing the behaviors of others. Observed actions are then modeled in the mind, and the models are called up when they seem to apply to a new situation. As we have seen, the observations we make of how things work in the waking world are projected onto dreams. However, in lucid dreams, since we know that we are not in the waking world, we are free to consciously create new models. We can test the results of with new kinds sorry, we can test the results of new kinds of actions, both by ourselves and by other dream characters. And if we find the new behaviors work well, we will add them to our repertoire of possible ways to respond. For example, if you are usually a timid and shy person, in lucid dreams you can practice being open and assertive with dream characters. If you like the results, you will find it easier to do the same while awake. Even if the results of your dream experiments are not wholly positive, the practice will probably decrease the effort it takes to apply the new approach in waking life. You will learn that even though an experience may not feel good at the time, you can handle it, and the end result may be an improvement in your overall situation in life. Creating positive futures. As a further hint on how lucid dreams can help us plan our waking lives, consider this statement from Bandura's images of desirable future events tend to foster the behavior most likely to bring about their realization. When we conceive of what we would like the future to bring, what we would like our lives to become, we are preparing ourselves to attain that future. The act of creating a concrete mental image in which we see ourselves as happy or successful reinforces our intentions to behave in ways that help us achieve the image in our heads. This is the basis of the innumerable self-help books and tapes on the market that instruct you to see yourself as rich or visualize yourself being thin. Lucid dreams as extremely vivid mental images are the perfect place to set up images of your future success. If you wish to lose weight, you can dream that you are thin and fit as you like, experience how it feels to be that way, and increase your motivation to achieve that state in waking life. Perhaps you want to stop smoking. In a lucid dream, you could dream yourself as 80 years old and healthy, cheerily hiking up a mountainside without huffing and puffing. This future is not likely to come to pass if you continue to smoke, so if you enjoy the hike in the dream, you will be encouraged to break your addiction to cigarettes. The happy futures you conjure in your lucid dreams can extend beyond your own success and pleasure. Perhaps the more people there are in the world who create potent images of peace and joy for all the inhabitants of the earth, the more likely we will be to survive the current crisis of the planet and grow on to achieve the greatest potential of the human race. Idries Shah refers to a closely related idea in the preface to his Caravan of Dreams. In one of the best tales of the Arabian Nights, Maraf the cobbler found himself daydreaming his own fabulous caravan of riches. Destitute and almost friendless in an alien land, Maraf at first mentally conceived and then described an unbelievably valuable cargo on its way to him. Instead of leading to exposure and disgrace, this idea was the foundation of his eventual success. The imagined caravan took shape, became real for a time, and arrived. May your caravan of dreams, too, find its way to you. And that is the end of chapter 8. Thank you so much for joining us today. Remember, everyone, if you've missed any of the previous chapters, Onironauts, you can find all of the dreamy metaphysical chapters in our original playlist titled Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming, found on our playlist tab. Also, want to encourage you to check out, if you haven't already, check out our other metaphysical playlist titled Shambhala, The Sacred Path of the Warrior. That's another great one too. It'll really change the way you think about things. And don't forget to ask yourself, am I dreaming? Thanks again for joining us today, folks. Looking forward to seeing you all in the comments section. And hopefully also on our Dreams and Visions playlist, where you can find all kinds of more information about your lucid dreaming and just dreams and visions in general. Look for those live streams on the 21st of each month. Thanks again, everyone. Have a wonderful, dreamy day. Bye.